biohacking, performance, mastery, mindset, holistic health. This is a show about getting better every single day. I'm on a mission, guys, to help over 1 million people get healthy and lose weight. Why? Because when you lose weight and get healthy, you have higher self-esteem. You have more self-confidence. And that person goes out and crushes their goal and starts living the highest version of themselves, and then they have way more impact on the world. What's up, guys? I am super excited for today's podcast episode. I got my man Alundas Havens here. This guy is, I just got a chance to meet him, but he's doing so many amazing things. He's got a background as a Marine Corp vet. He's out of my home state, California, and I know the Bay Area, Fresno, California. So I'm really excited to dive into that. And he's really got this awesome pain to purpose story. A lot of just trauma, physical, emotional abuse, alcoholism as a kid, and now he's turned that pain to purpose story, pain story into a story of purpose. And he's launching some really cool stuff with his podcast, The Winner's Paradigm, where he's on a mission to help people calibrate and dial in that mindset so that they can achieve their definition of success. Alundas, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. It's an honor. I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, likewise. I also forgot that you got the background there. If anybody's watching on live or watching on the video, you can see you're also the founder of Alpha Influence Media. So we're going to dive into all of that. But, I think kind of me just talking about the intro and, your story, maybe you could just kind of tell people your humble beginnings and kind of where you're at now, how you got here.
Absolutely, brother. And funny thing real quick, I know we talked about you being in Oakland out there. One of my cousins was a police officer out there. And then he actually, at the time, my dad actually moved to Oakland, lived in Oakland, and then worked in San Francisco. So small world, but I wanted to add that. Originally for me, guys, I'm from Fresno, California. My parents had me when they were 19, 21. So young in the mindset, doing a lot of crazy shit. And that's kind of how I started out. So narcissistic, alcoholics, stepdad was racist. So it built a lot of internal beliefs and dialogue for me where it was difficult because the way he perceived it. So good thing is he taught me how to talk to certain people. And it was easy as like, I was really cool with all the police officers in the city we're in Kingsburg, right next to it. For instance, because I hung out with the wrong crowd one day. So it was one of those to where it was like, hey, sir, how you doing? How's your family doing? So like, the good thing is like my stepdad made me act accordingly in one way, but it was like I couldn't identify. I couldn't be myself. I didn't really know certain things. Got kicked out of the house because he one day went on a rant about hating a group of people. And I said, I hate everybody equally. It's equality. And it just shows like some of the things. So for me, the reason why I kind of gravitated towards that was, growing up, having these thoughts, not being able to talk. So a lot of it, my family, I can't have those conversations with people and really talk about it and be like, hey, man, how was this? Or how did you perceive this? Because the point of people where they're at in their life is they get confrontational or they just don't understand it. So it was me kind of going crazy, left to the Marine Corps for that reason was I needed to.
You left straight out of high school, right? Like 18 years old, boom.
Yeah. So funny thing is I left a month after high school. I actually was supposed to go in October and then I got in a fight with my stepdad. He's like, get your shit, move out. And then the next day I ended up coming back home. But it was one where I would go home, do my chores, I would leave. And I called the recruiter. I'm like, hey, brother, I need to leave. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, some shit popped off. Like, either I go to jail or that. He's like, why? I was like, bro, if my stepdad gets in my face, I will lay hands on him. So
yeah. I want to get to the military before that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Next day gets me in. I was with the recruiter every day, making calls with him. And that was me. So I used that. And then even on boot leave, my mom thought my stepdad was having stepdad thought my mom was having an affair with my wrestling coach because the only bathroom we had was my mom's bathroom. She was in there crying. Literally 10-second window, 45 goes off. My stepdad almost shoots my coach in the face. So it was something for me where it was like even getting away from home was a problem. Went to the schoolhouse. One of my cousins I grew up with got stabbed 9 times and he was messing with the wrong people again. He actually robbed a Chevron one day. So it was just like all the things that I, wanted to be away from and really worked on myself for were the things. So started drinking heavily because of all these things and not processing trauma, not really going through it. The stepdad incident, it was something that I wanted revenge. I was like, bro, you put my mom through this. SWAT team took my brother and sister out of the house. Like
Mm.
that played in my head. So it was certainly those things that got me to that point where I just kept drinking, drinking, drinking. I was my own boss at 19 in the Marine Corps as well. So had
Yeah.
a little bit of that cockiness where I was just like, bro, I do shit. I look good. And it was one where, tore all the cartilage in my right knee. And from there, things fell apart. So
Mm.
that was where, I first, again, started challenging those beliefs because I figured that some of my rationale in wanting to fight when my feelings get hurt was like, that's environmental. And that's something that you need to be able to process because as an adult, you shouldn't have to, get in disagreement and you're like, oh, those are fighting words. Let's go. You should be able to be like, yeah, let's move on with this.
Yes. Okay. I'm really curious. I'm listening to your story, and when I worked for the city of Oakland as a police officer many years ago, I would always be amazed as I would go into people's homes and completely dysfunctional, and there you know this because and you see some of the youth. It's like, well, of course they're dysfunctional. The youth are on the path to dysfunction. Duh. Like, look where they're growing up at. But then I would meet these outlier kids, like someone like you, who I'm just like curious, like, how did you get that mindset? Or was that like instilled at you at an early age? Or like, what was it about you that you're like, this, I know this is not right. Like this, I don't feel aligned with where I'm living and what they're telling me I should be like. I don't want to be that person. I want much more.
So I'm gonna tell you how it is, brother. And you know this from talking with me and that. Um, I just knew at an early age, like the shit I was seeing. Like my dad had sex with a girl in the same bed I was in when I was 3 years old. So it was one thing where it was like I knew what sex was at that age. I knew what drugs were. So it was cool. And my dad and my mom brought people in and out, and it was cool. When I was younger, my dad would hype me up and really like try to get me to think that shit was cool. But it like left me with that identity issue still, to where it was like, okay, and in my case, like I thought I was a loser because I was the fat kid and that, and luckily when I got older was one of the things where I started getting what I wanted and attracting it. Is like, this wasn't feeling it. So me as a kid, like I just knew, and I knew I was different than other kids. I hate using that shit, but
Yeah.
I was just more mature, going home. Like my dad at one house, like I was 6 years old and his girlfriend left. So I had to take on the role and wash dishes and vacuum the house. And I broke his fucking PS3 controller. He beat the shit out of me because I didn't know it was under the ottoman. So it was like, I had to, at a young age, be able to know what house I was in. So mom and dad's house, party house, they're doing crazy shit. As long as I just stay under the radar, if he's drinking, I don't come out, good. Mom's house, on the other hand, stepdad would say crazy shit, or for instance, like I got a design in my hair, you fucking hoodlum and this and that, So I knew like, don't get designs, dress nice, no baggy clothes.
Mm.
I would wear Dodger hats and white T-shirts. Fresno, that's different because everybody wears red.
Yeah.
So it was one where it was like, he would be like, oh, you're really gonna wear that? But it was one where it was like knowing where you're at and how to speak. My dad's house, I can cuss and talk loosely, and I could not do my homework. Versus my mom's, I had to. So it was really knowing that's not what I want. And then again, I challenged everything, so that's why they would get upset with me. Mom, what did you want to be? Oh, marine biologist. Why didn't I do it? It was hard. You were born. And it was just like, I didn't want to live that. On the other hand, my dad's a hustler. So I seen him make money and do shit. And it was just like, I want that lifestyle, but not so I can have what I want and do what I want. It's so I can just be me, So in my case, it was seeing this, realizing it didn't align with me, talking with my stepdad, and he goes on a fucking tangent. And I'm just like, bro, I don't agree with you. Like, I hate politics because people try to paint the picture. I'm like, moral of the story is people are seeing different ways, and it's not just one race in this country. And people try to say it is or whatever. I'm like, nah, bro. So I see exactly how it is, and you can hear it. And in my case, it's like, why am I going to sit there? Kind of like he was a big old Trump fan. And to me, I'm like, I don't care for him. He's just not a leader to me.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where he's like, oh, well, you're on the left. And I'm like, I didn't say I was on the left. And it would just be like simple things like that.
Yeah.
So early age, I picked that up. And I'd say that's why I was successful with having those conversations, is I knew how to talk to people. So it would just be like, oh, yeah, no, oh, yeah, I guess, sir. And in my case, it was like I was always getting in trouble, whether it was fighting, being around the wrong kids, getting called in because someone got caught selling drugs, and they're like, this guy. So it was like, no, that's not me. I don't do that. So it was like I kind of had the good grades, stuck good, did the good things because that's what I wanted. But really, because the environment, because of home, because of my friends, it was like I try to be what I wasn't, acted stupid in classrooms. And it was just one of those things as a kid that I got through the depression and in counseling and everything for, I should say.
Yeah. But you're still a really young guy. You're like what, 24 or something? I remember hearing.
Yeah, I'm 24.
Okay, so and I want you to kind of talk about the military too, because you mentioned it briefly. Like you did your 4 years, there was an injury. It sounded like that was another setback too. Like here you are getting some freedom, getting some ability to like finally like something good, something positive in your life, right? And then it gets taken from you. But then I do want to ask too, like how did you learn all these skills at 24, dude? It took me like till I was 40 till like now, where like I coach people on this and like I see all these mistakes, and I'm thinking, man, maybe it was just you're accelerated because you were forced to adapt quickly. You quickly adapted, and that's where it is. But maybe, let's talk about a little bit the military and kind of what happened there, because that was another traumatic event. And talk about that.
Absolutely, brother. So they both go hand in hand. First, we'll talk about really, it's the same thing. So kind of how I became more mature and kind of learned skills and learned how to identify things. I just learned about what my spirit animal is, and it's an owl, and they're real intuitive. And they could read situations. I don't know. I felt like saying that because it kind of is me,
Yeah.
From dealing with trauma, dealing with alcoholism, damn well what rooms to walk in, Fresno, gang activity, exactly not to stare people in the eyes, these things. So I always over observe situations, and I look at everything, and I know exactly escape routes and that. Why? It helped me in the military as well, because I know how to be able to talk in certain situations, how to get through it in that. So it was a mix of both. Like when I was younger, I had to, be on my own shit, be independent and that. So thrived well in the military for that, because they want you to be micromanaged, but be independent. So
right.
Did well on that. I was one where I was at E3. They were like, you're a leader. You're not one of these kids that just fucks around. So I got thrown into the leadership roles. I deployed 19 and ran my shop on deployment. And it was one of those where it was like, I didn't even know my job. My boss, great individual, terrible leader. Reason why, she just didn't understand with my corporal that he was a good dude, really nice, soft guy. But it was just that he was taught wrong. So she would be like, you're an idiot, that. Me, on the other hand, you can scream at me all day. I'll laugh in your face and be like, all right, bro, let's go get some ice cream. And that's my mentality, because I grew up that way, so I can process it. So it's something that I just don't care about. Don't get me wrong. Like I still remember what you say and I'll use it. But it was one where I was just like, oh, I can do this. So got to excel. So that was year two. Year two, became my own boss for about 10 months. And then it was right before I went to a course, I tore all the cartilage in my right knee. And that's where it started, hitting me. So up until that point, I thought I was untouchable. I had that ego where I'm like, bro, I'm fucking killing it. I'm doing
19,
this.
20 years old. And that's all there is testosterone going through the body. And you think nobody can touch you. I'm the baddest man on the planet. Yeah.
Yeah. I would do like Marine Corp martial arts and do jiu-jitsu all the time. So doing that regularly.
Yep.
2-a-day workouts, killing it at work. I was about to pick up sergeant then. So I was just like, I'm the shit, 19-year-old sergeant. I'm the best on this base.
Yep.
And torn with all the cartilage in my right knee. Yeah, that sergeant board got pulled right out of my hand. So pissed me off, because I still never picked it up until I got out. And it was one of those where it was getting back to that point where you're nothing. They removed me from that meritorious board. I get a boss, right? Another one that it's kind of funny. The last 2 months I read 48 Laws of Power, and I was so mad at myself, because first one, like, don't outshine the master.
Yeah.
This lady was good looking, and she used it to her advantage, and she got into her career. She knew jack shit. She was at a different level compared to where we were at. So the way we ran from the unit side, because I was in aviation, so I did all the admin for the MV-22 Ospreys. So we would do all the flight logbooks for them. And then in conjunction with that, we ran the training department. So height and weight for 200 individuals, their physical fitness tests. Like I was that guy that was running all that, knew all those procedures, knew body composition, ran the body composition workout. So I was one of the guys that was one of the leaders in all that stuff. So it was one of those for me that was a step back, because now I got a micromanager and she's on me. And two, it was, identifying that, hey, I can't do anything right in this situation. It was like boot camp all over again, training for you, where you're like, bro, I can't do anything right. Like anything I do with this lady. So before I got out the Marine Corps, I'll let her know.
Do you think, really quick, do you think that she did that because she felt insecure? Because I always noticed in the police department, anytime I was around like these amazing leaders, that I always found out like, and they were open, they were willing to talk to you, they didn't just bark orders at you. I
Yeah.
always found that those guys, and when I learned more about their history and their past, they had done the most. And so their attitude was like, I have no ego. Like I don't have to big shine you. Like people know about me. Like I proved myself. I always found the bosses that were incompetent, didn't know what they were doing. They tried to like just, they tried to belittle you. And I felt like you're a weak leader. Like you're doing this because you're trying to hide the fact that I know that you're a weak leader. And I never would say it to their face, but it was just like their own internal insecurities. And it actually brought out the weakness in them more. And by the way, I see that now all on social media and I love it. I got guys on TikTok and YouTube that are just, their whole mission is just to like leave me nasty and negative comments. And I'm like, I look at your following and then I look at like half of them have like 3 followers, but and I'm just like, who is this guy? But like they make their living off just, I just laugh. I'm like, I already know you're insecure. This is beautiful.
Bro,
Like have an amazing life.
I had a call yesterday with a guy like that and just attacked my team. And I was just like, how the hell are you going to attack my team and then try to ask for my business? And it was one of those, like, I don't want to work with you from a core values perspective. I use you as an example. And I was like, we aligned. I love that you mentioned that about the leaders. Yeah, it was exactly that. Why? Because I told her ahead of time, hey, on deployment, this is what's going to happen. Why? Because I've worked the 16 to 18-hour days. I know how it feels. I know I had a mentor as well that was on deployment with me, and he was in the Navy, E6, and me and him would go to the gym. So, like, I would get off 18-hour shift. We still hit the gym for 2 hours, go to sleep for 2 hours, hit it. My body now probably can't do that. But
Yeah.
for me at that time, it was all mental, especially working every single day. That took a toll because it was just like, I don't want to be here. I hate all of you guys. That first boss, she was just the know-it-all, wouldn't teach you, figure it the fuck out. Here's the book, figure it out. Here's the instruction, figure it out. Oh, did you look it up? Like, no one's going to
Yes.
memorize that,
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was one of those. So when I had that leader, I identified it, but it was kind of one of those. She would quiz me on what it was, and then she would be like, "Oh, this." And in my case, she had a realistic view of how the Marine Corps worked and how it should work. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not how it works over here." And
Yeah.
she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because if I want some training to happen, I got to be strategic. I got to go get these other staff NCOs, and I got to be like, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're doing it. This is how it's going to get your guys trained up. This is why you guys are going to be eligible for promotion." Then I go to sergeant major. Then we go to the CO. She's like, "No, you just route it like a normal process." I'm like, "That's not how it works. This command, they're going to say no to it." So it was learning those things. Excuse me.
You had to bring the whole You had to bring the whole like Fresno adaptive. You had to adapt to her too, right? It's like,
Yeah, so it was really learning those things, but with her, she wasn't a good public speaker, so it was one of those like in staff meetings, don't get up, let her talk, and then that, or like there's memes, and there'll be like staff NCOs when they read promotion warrants, when they're reading,
Yeah.
so it was like let their progress show, and at the same time, when you're talking about having the leaders that like been there, done this shit, they were the cool ones, and they were like, hey, so that's actually one of them. One of my staff one of my other staff sergeants I had, he was the squadron gun, so E7 position as E6. Dude was a badass. Unfortunately, he got out, but it was one of those where it was like this dude pushed me every single day. He would come at 7 p.m. come to the shop. Hey man, you're still here. You need to go home. And I'm like, oh no, I just finished. 7 p.m. would be my cutoff time. Then I'd start college while I was my own boss. So it was one where he was just like, hey, you're putting in the work, but you need to stop. So it was having that person as well, where it was like that good leader. And I'm explaining to him, I'm like, bro, I can't do anything right. She's saying this. She has a way with people because, again, like rank pulls rank. So they can say whatever the fuck they want. People are going to believe it. So it was one of those where it was like she did that. She would write me negative proficiency and conduct marks for like monthly. That didn't even count. And then when the real ones came out, she had to give me the right ones because I did everything I needed to get promoted, did extra on the side, was going to college. So it was like one of those things where like just her inability, in my case, it was going to college, tapped into me doing self-development. And it was like, dude, I can't stand these leaders. They haven't done shit. They haven't done college. They haven't educated themselves. They're not good people. Like, why am I going to be that leader and pass that on? So that was kind of one of them that I passed on to my Marines, and really told them like, hey, this is what you need to do. And it was just one of those like power struggles. And when I got knee surgery, she decided to get one of my Marines to talk shit on me and like really put me in a bad position. And I was laughing because I was like, okay, I'll get written up. And then after that, like the truth really came out with her. So it was one of those.
Yeah. Okay. So the knee injury, that's it. Your career's over though because of this knee injury. Sounds like, right?
Yeah, so actually whittled it down to my last 3 weeks in the Marine Corps, and then played some more fuck games and went back and forth between medical and admin. And you need a medical extension, you need an admin extension. Admin, oh, you got to do 3 physical fitness tests. I'm like, yeah, I can't run 6 miles right now. I can't do a combat fitness test. Not happening. Yeah. So went back to it, and that's where I was just like, you know what, I'm done. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. Kind of my last year, I started hating it because the military's like that. Once you check out, they're like, F off.
Yeah.
They made me alternate duty driver, so I was just driving people from Miramar to Camp Pendleton all the time and not doing my job. And it was one of those where it's like I didn't want to get out, but physically I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then the negativity, the mental health side was going to shit because it was just being there. Depressing. Yeah, playing these games. One of my Marines I cried with this kid, man. I tried so much with him. He came from Philly and just always cry that card, you know what I mean? And be like, oh, I had it so hard. No one cares. Like, I get it. You grew up hard. Now let's get through that and use it as a strength versus complaining about it. Because if you keep complaining about the problem, no one's going to care about it. But if you try to take actionable steps and do it, it's going to help you. So one of those, unfortunately, he got passed out because he decided to do something that was illegal. So it was one of those where it was like, I tried everything with this kid. And in my case, it was like learning it and really being like, all right, what do I got to do as a leader to be able to help, to influence, to work on it? In my case, it was like, hey, straighten all this out. So even when I figured out, what's my next step after that, it was like, hey, you already have all the tools to do it. And that's kind of, where it started hitting for me.
Yeah. So you get out of the military and then kind of fast forward us to now, because even after, I mean, there's this like, what do I do? Right. There's like, what do I do now? I'm out of the military. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got a bum knee. And then kind of catches up to some of the exciting things that you're doing with the Winners Paradigm and Alpha Influence Media.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you for touching that up. So it was rough. I'm going to say it's rough for that first year. I really said F off to medical. I'm not going there. They also put me on antidepressants as a neuro blocker. I start having panic attacks. Oh, that's not how it works. Here's a bull. Here's your dopamine, serotonin levels. Yeah. It flows up. I'm like, that's not how it fucking works. I took this medication. I felt bad. So really had this bad stigma of it and, what was going on in that. And I was like, I'm not doing this. So started figuring out for me, what was going to work, using different things, researching, got into CBD heavily. And it was something that like helped take my migraines away. So I get migraines every single day. I have extreme joint pain, shoulders, knees, elbows, everything. So for the longest, I was talking on my knee and being like, oh, I can't do this because of my knee. I can't do hack squats because my knee hurts versus putting CBD on, putting the knee wraps on. So first, I did home improvement sales, rough as shit. First month, 7 G's. And next month, I didn't get anything. Next month, I didn't get anything again because they didn't update their price book. So we sold the wrong thing. And then they said, oh, yeah, we have this promotion in. It was just to get us in the door. It wasn't a active promotion, they said. So it was one of those where learn that, I went to a mortgage brokerage, wanted to be a loan officer, failed my test 3 times. And I'm getting mad at myself. Like, why am I doing this? Well, my wife had a second miscarriage, getting up at 4 to go to the gym every day, working on studying on my degree and finishing the classes because I said I'm going to do it, even though it didn't resonate with me. Good thing is the military paid me. So I was like, that's another factor. So it was really like putting all this work in, studying for this test. I failed 3 times. Now I'm arguing with kids that are coming off mommy and daddy's couch because they have a Mercedes. And I told them that if you have a Mercedes, like, I can care less because I don't need it right now. I have bills I got to pay. It's me and the wife. Like, I don't have support from my family. If I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. So in my case, it's like push all that negative shit out. Like, I don't really care right now. At that time, I was stopping drinking. So that's kind of where especially there at that bachelor, it was a frat house place. And it was one of those, like, eventually when I quit, I realized I was no longer drinking on Fridays and acting stupid. It was just one that didn't resonate with me anymore. And in that case, like, they're coming off mommy and daddy's couch and they're arguing with me about these problems and I'm getting pissed about it. And even led to, a week before my daughter was born, I started the Winners Paradigm podcast because I was like, I want to talk about all these things that really shaped me into who I am. But at the same time, let people know, because I know a lot of people go through that, to where even it's the environmental thing where, like, for instance, like, I started educating myself because I moved my dad, I went to a different school, in Clovis, and they were educated. So like you couldn't talk to a lot of kids even there, using slang, because they'd be like, get out of here. So I went back home, and why are you acting white now? You speak different. So how to be able to change it again, because again,
Yeah.
it's the environmental. And then going home to my stepdad, how to act a certain way. So certain friends would come over. Why do you act like that? I'm like, bro, I'll tell you later, So it was one of those things for me where it was like piecing it together on that podcast, delivering that to people, which I'm going to have you on next week.
Let's
and
go.
then be able to at the same time, start it. So led into Alpha Influence Media, how that happened. April, I was working, helping veterans get their VA claims up. And my nanny moves to Minnesota. So holding the daughter, making sales calls every single day. Job comes at me sideways. They're like, hey, is your heart still in it? And I'm like, I'm your number one sales rep. I'm working 60 to 80 hours, like going to school as well. Like, I really don't care. I'm putting all this work to you guys. Here's the corrective action plan. Oh, is your heart in it? Is this really what you want to be doing? So went back to Zach's group, and that's kind of how it started, was listen to his podcast, joined his podcast group, $50 a month, and then let him know. And I was just pissed one day, and I was like, hey, bro, I'm working on this, and I was my own boss in the Marine Corps. Like, it's just defeating. Like, I came out of the military, and I'm trying to get in a leadership position, and no one sees it in me. These jobs are like, oh, you don't have it on paper, you don't have a degree. Yeah, we're not going to do it, because 4 years isn't much versus someone who has 10 that has more weight. So it was something for me where I struggled with it. Zach was like, you know what, we can work something out. So that's where we started Alpha Influence Media. First, it was just working on getting people booked on shows that align with their message and really allows them to, streamline that process. Because that's what we go through, is we don't have the time necessarily in the business. We're making calls all day, we're emailing people, we're doing social media. Like, there's so much factors that go into just the podcast that it was that. So Zach has a production, I was doing bookings. Then it led to us doing the ad campaigns again, getting people booked on. And then now it's evolving into me doing reels. So that's what I'm learning right now, working on, is doing some reels so I can be like, hey, this is what we can do to add on to the package for you, and really help people take their brand to the next level.
Yeah. Okay. Just amazing stuff. I always find it really cool. I mean, your story, like, there's that mixture of hard work and then luck, right? But you know what? Something I'm even learning right now is I got a chance to interview David Meltzer, and I don't know if you know David.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him on as well. He was too busy last time because that's when they came out that new show.
Yeah, I was lucky just to connect with him at a mastermind event, and so he's an amazing human being. And his story of, he made $100 million, lost $100 million, made it all back again, and now he's just on this path to really a war path to just empower a lot of people. But he taught me something recently, and he says you have to ask. He asks himself two big questions every day, and one is, who can I help, and who can help me? I never ask myself who can help me. I've never asked myself that question because I feel like it's a weakness. I feel like I'm a weak person if I ask you for help. And I just think it's really cool that you just, maybe it was even like a venting session, but you had the wherewithal to ask Zach, like, I need help, man. Like, can you help me? And then, it's like the biblical verse, right? Asking, you shall receive. And then here you guys are connected. And not that you weren't putting in the hard work before, right? There's all those steps that align. There's that serendipity of it. And now here you are thriving. So it's really cool to see.
Bro, thank you. And yeah, even I went out to his event, Alpha Underdog Empowerment, and I was hanging out with him, and it was just me and him. And I was just like, bro, is this real right now? Because he's a really cool dude. And it was one of those, like, he's the big brother that I never really had, and that's who he is as a person. Amazing dude. And in my case, like, that day, my logic was like, I'd rather my mentor just tell me suck it the fuck up and move on. In his case, he's not going to tell you that. But it was one of those where, like, I was ready for it, but I was just like, if I embarrass myself in front of him, at least he knows I'm trying, to the point where it's like, yo, I'm fucking working. Like, it's not working out for me. He's been through there. He came out of prison and had those feelings, So I'm like, bro, like, I'm literally trying. I'm putting this in. The wife's like, the money's not here. And it's because before, dual military, she's in the Navy. So we were making bank, living good every single weekend. And then I get out and it's like, some months not. People want to go to Disneyland. Yeah, we're not going to Disneyland. So it was one of those where it was like being able to say, like, how do I live the life I want to live? And that's where, that you say, like, who can help me? Who can I help? Who can help me? That's where I kind of thought was like, if I can just ask who's living the life I want to live, hey, bro, how do I do this? Or how do I break through? That's going to do it. And I'd say, like, that's been the whole thing, even working with them, is the mindset shift, hey, let's not do that, or coming at that idea where it's like, hey, we need to be able to do this. No, let's shift focus because this is going to work better with what we're doing right now. Okay. And it's something that core values definitely aligned. And I'd say, it does take luck, but it's definitely core values. Because if you don't click with that person, there's so many gurus right now, like that be saying whatever, and then they act a certain way. And I'm like, bro, I just can't dig with you for that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask too, because it's such what you just mentioned too, it's such a huge shift to go from, and I know too, from just having that steady paycheck every 2 weeks, a good job and everything going really great. And I don't talk too much about my story on my podcast, my personal podcast, but you know of it. And, over the last year, it's been challenging, right? And being an entrepreneur is like, one of my coaches says, you have to be crazy to be an entrepreneur. You literally have to be crazy because it's not a linear path. You don't just, you just like skyrocket. Like it's like this, you have good days, you have bad days, like you were mentioning. And like, how was that transition for you? Like going from the military, then this entrepreneurship model, and then kind of like, what's the self-talk now that you use to keep going when times aren't great? Like,
ooh, bro, I love you as a person for saying that, and two, because that's what I'm passionate about. Yeah, so it's been rough. I thought it was easy because that's my inner dialogue and the David Goggins, because my dad would scream at me when I lose wrestling matches and in football games. So it was one of those where it's like, that's my inner dialogue, is like, wake the fuck up and screaming. And I like it, but it was one for me where it's like, I thought I was doing so well. My wife's like, you're not, you're
wives are always the most honest too.
Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah.
Kids.
Well, at first I was talking about that, like, oh yeah, but this area of my life, and I'm doing good, and I got school, and I got work, and I got studying for this test, and I'm going to take care of it, and we're going to have a baby. And then it was like all these things that I wasn't doing, which I thought it was. So initially it was pretty rough. I didn't acknowledge that because that's not who I am. I want to keep pushing. And then really I say the last 6 months, I've been more into it, but really the last 9, since my daughter was born, I freaked out because I didn't want to have a son. It was one where I was just like, if I have a son now, I'm going to be battling some of the things, and I wasn't ready for it because it was just, how do you talk to him? Yeah. How do you say certain things? I don't want to be too rough. And then like daughter came along, and that's not how it was. And I've been, on the spiritual journey, really tapping into it and figuring out. So it was for me, like really getting to know myself, unpacking some of that trauma, unpacking some of those beliefs, me being upset, manifesting things I wanted, getting out of that struggle mindset and survival mode where I need money, to being like, yo, we're going to make this money. We're going to figure out, and we're going to do something good about it, to where it's like, I can be able to be like, yeah, I can help you with this solution, and not like I'm burning somebody for money and get like that. So it was really that huge transitional shift for me. And at the same time, it was about like what I manifested, who I was speaking to, the energy, inner dialogue got better. And I'm like, now doing affirmations, I am wealth, I'm wealthy, why did why am I still here today? Oh, because I got free school lunch, and I used to sell it, and they have the chicken burgers. I would sell that to people. And it was like, I just was smart and knew people were doing dumb shit. So I was going to capitalize and make my money, So it was like, I was that one. And it was like really appreciating the process. Or 8th grade, I got put into like a special ed class type deal because the state testing, I just bubbled everything in. I was like, I'm not doing this shit. And they put me into that class because I was at a new school. So it was like, oh, you're far below average. And I'm in this class and I'm just like messing around every day. And it was like me appreciating that, finally graduating college. And it was like, you accomplished college, which didn't align with me, but it was something that I used to be like, oh, whatever, I acted dumb. I always got good grades, but it was one where it's like, I literally got put in multiple classes like that, even in college, failed the math entrance exam and had to be able to get there. So in my case, it's like looking at the whole journey and just being appreciative of it. Like, I got my own house. I'm not living in the ghetto anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that. I'm not fighting with people all the time. Like, I'm really at peace. And that's what I'm doing, is trying to be at peace and help people be the best that they can be. So it's, for me, it was a tough process, but now extremely grateful because I got people like you around, brother, where it's like, you guys are going to tell me, hey, bro, like, this is what you can do to be better. This is what we can do. And it's one of those where it's like, now looking at it, originally when I got out the military, I didn't think that I would be, having a podcast, even starting it. I was still in that, my voice doesn't matter type stage.
Yeah.
So now it's completely lopsided.
I always feel like the more we start to align with our truth and we start to align with that, you start to meet the right people. You start to connect with it. It's that whole law of attraction, law of vibration. It's all that stuff. And
Absolutely.
it's neat to see like your growth and your path and what's happening for you because you just keep tuning into it. You keep stoking that flame. And some people won't, right? They stoke it once, maybe twice, hit a couple of roadblocks, they give up. And you can see just your story. You continue to hit that door with your head, like I'm coming through somehow, one way or the other. So, really cool stuff, brother. One question just on having kids, and I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old boys, and they're rambunctious. And something that comes up for me a lot is just really like on my mind more and more now is like how to be a good dad, and like really the thought, because I'm so entrepreneurial spirited and I have so many big goals and I'm just so focused and honed on that. And so I know your daughter's young. You said 9 months, right?
Yes.
And so I'm just wondering though, I'm sure you've got some aspirations too, just coming from your becomings of like, I'm going to do something like my daughter will never experience what I experienced. And I'm just curious, like, what are some of the things that you're thinking about of like, man, how I'm going to raise this precious child. And just because compared to what you had to go through, I know we always say like, I'm never going to do what my dad did or mom did. And I didn't have a rough childhood, but I still said the same things. Right. So
No, 100% at you. And I've actually been thinking about that more and more and more. One thing I'm not going to do is hit my kids. Just
yeah.
don't. I don't see why you should. Also, my mom like left marks on me and fucking went to school and they called CPS and like this whole thing. So it was kind of something like my mom used to blame me for that, and it was like I never want to put my kid in that situation because me and Zach were talking about that, and that came up, and he was just like, did you feel like you weren't worth it? And I was like, yeah, I did. So like that was something I was thinking about for my kids, was like I'm never gonna lay a finger on them. And if not, we're going to play either, you're PTing and doing some workouts,
yeah,
or you're going to write a fucking essay. Like, and it was me processing it a different way. So definitely it has allowed me to do that. I meditate a lot, and that's why I like meditating before the day starts or praying. So I can be able to start thinking clearer and be the best dad I can be for that day. And that goes in it, it's going through that, or kind of, if they just want to be themselves, like if they want to get nose piercing, go for it. Like if that makes you happy.
Yeah.
And that, it's different if you start dressing something and then you start being disrespectful. But like, if you just want to express yourself and get a nose piercing, dye your hair blue, like go for it. Dye your hair pink. Like, I don't care if you're a dude. Like, why am I going to be in your way telling you something as a parent that's going to prevent you, or judging who they bring home? Where in my case, it was just, in the Marine Corps, I dated a black girl, and my mom was just kind of like, my mom thinks a certain way on people still.
For sure.
And she was just like, oh, and the black girl's like, yeah, what did your mom say about me? And I'm like, yeah, you don't want to hear it. Like, I don't want to tell her about you. My mom's like, I hope she's not ghetto. And I'm like, that's the shit like I never want to say to my kids. Like, see people for who they are, not what you think or that, right? In my case, like that shit was extremely embarrassing. And it was one that hurt that girl's feelings, and she was crying.
Of course.
I was just like, I don't understand that. Like, so for me, it's really like coming to grips with that. And that's where now I'm going through and really meditating on and like journaling like crazy. Is I'm making sure like all that's not going to get repeated, or being reactionary and just screaming at them. Like, hear them out first, or being like, hey, let's be able to do this. Let's teach you about money. Let's teach you about these things.
Yeah.
Because in our case, like we may have got a sample size, or we may have got a little bit of wisdom, but really be that person. In my case, it was having the two dads, stepdad that I can say certain things to, and then my dad that I can only say certain things to. So it was one of those, is like, I can ask my stepdad, how do I face my fears? And then I can't go to my dad because he's gonna be like, oh, don't be a little bitch. But I can ask my dad, hey dad, what do I got to do to close a deal? And he could be like, hey, this is what you do. So in my case, it's like being resourceful, and it kind of goes with it is who you are as a human being. I've noticed that it's like, if I focus so much on fixing other people, I get nowhere. But when I focus on myself and I'm like, you know what, I got to do these things, verbalize it, I should say. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah.
That's where people are like, you know what? Yeah, we get what you're saying. We gravitate towards you. They start asking me more questions. In my head, I'm like, why are you coming to me with questions? But it's you being that leader. So that's kind of the parent I am, and I really strive for every day, brother. So I love that you asked that question.
Yeah, well, I definitely we'll do a podcast like 3 to 5 years from now, and we'll see if you still say the same things because you're like, oh, I'm gonna be really patient. I'm not gonna do anything. Well, I'll see. Usually around 5 is when the back talking and stuff starts to. But she's a girl, so maybe you want to have that's a boy thing. I think also, girls are a little bit more, from what I've seen, more passive and kinder, and so we'll see. I did want to ask you one more question, and then we'll get in maybe a couple lightning round questions. But it's interesting because your story, you talk about mindset, you talk about priming your day, you talk about meditation. I work with a lot of alpha male guys and coaching and health coaching, but a lot of my health coaching, a lot of the foundational principles is mindset. And I really try to invoke everything you're talking about, journaling. And I tell these guys, I'm like, listen, you've done nutrition plans before. You've done exercise plans before. But guess what? You did them, and then you did 75 hard or whatever you did, and then now you're back to square one. Why is that? I'm like, there's clearly something missing here. I think it's the mindset piece, the consistency piece to show up over and over again. Some guys don't want to hear it from me. They're like, what is this, like life? What is this, like life coaching or something? And I'm like, however you want to spin it. I don't care. I mean, what's wrong with life coaching, by the way? I think everybody needs a coach of some sort, right? That's why you were in a mastermind. You get it. But I'm curious, like, what do you say to people that, here you are, thriving and having a really successful business coming from like the streets of hard knocks, and then now you're making it, and you're telling me I do meditation, I do this. Like, what do you tell other guys? Do you run into that a lot too, of these kind of alphas or people that you grew up with that are like, meditation, what are you, crazy? What do you tell them?
That's a damn good one. I lost track of one point, so we'll leave that for now. But what I do is I'll be like, hey, do you know what samurai are? And they're like, hell yeah, I know who samurai are.
Yeah.
Do you know what they did? Yeah, they fought battles and they won wars. What else did they do? Do you know they garden? Do you know they read? You know that they're religious and they're good to their families, and there's a whole lot more. I don't go in detail, but
yeah,
for the most part, these are all different aspects of our life, right? So you can be the alpha male, you can be macho, you can be whatever the hell you want to be, but if you're just one of them, that's not worth it. You know what I mean? You're not to the full potential, and that's really what it is. Is like the way the samurai, the book, what is the Book of the Five Rings? They talk about it in that book. Yeah. It's short, and they're like, I love that book. Oh, live this way, and all these different principles that they learn and they embody, right? That's us as human beings, as leaders, as alpha males. Like, we have to be that. So yeah, there is a time to be tough and to teach our kids. Yeah, you got to be tough. You got to stand up for yourself. Teach them how to fight. Like, be able to do those basic things for survival. But then at the same time, be able to be kind and be like, all right, man, like, what happened? Why did you do bad in your game today? How does that make you feel? And they're going to tell you, oh, I did bad because of this, or, oh, I didn't really care. Why didn't you really care today? Well, this happened. Maybe this isn't for me. Well, there's your answer. Maybe they're not aligned to doing the sport that they want, so it's like asking those questions, being able to have that sign. We can be tough all the time, but then for our wives, if we can't even have a conversation or open up to them, it gets us nowhere.
Suck it up, woman. Yeah.
I do the same thing where, like, my wife will freak out. I'm like, you're going to be all right, and it's like, yeah, but she's coming from a place of concern in that, so you got to be able to be reassuring in that, not just to say what we want, but really to be there. So in the case, I like to use that as like the way of the samurai.
I love that.
Way
That's
of the
great.
warriors,
I'm going to start stealing that with my alpha males.
Yeah. It's just explain, like, warriors over time, even gladiators, like, they did all these things and they had all these rituals that made them successful, and why they won wars and why they strategized well, because it wasn't that they were just a good fighter. You can be a good fighter, but then they're going to die somewhere else in life. And that's us as men. Yeah.
You mentioned I want you to just to kind of, or maybe there's something else, but you mentioned what you're doing with Alpha Influence Media. Any other exciting projects that you guys are working on? You mentioned the reels, but anything else you want to just share that you're up to? You got the Winners Paradigm podcast. You mentioned you're starting another one. But yeah, anything else?
That's it for right now, brother. I want to
that's a lot.
Yeah. I'm focusing
on the handful
to get that in. Kind of our thing. What we want to do is just take that content game up. I know with people, like, they have good videos, but it's one of those where it's like, we want to create something as well that's going to give us the edge, but really help people take their brand to the next level and focus on what they want. So putting something on TikTok and slowly building things, but captivating your audience. So it's all those things we're putting in factor with starting the second podcast on building dominant brands, and really, like, talk to people like you and like, hey, brother, how did you make that switch? What did you do for your business? How were you able to get more coaching clients when you thought, like, I can't do this, So asking those actionable steps, And then the next thing that's on the back burner, I put it on a 10-year plan, but I got to be real with myself. I'm getting
Yeah.
this done in a year and a half to two. Is we're gonna have, we're having live events. So Zach's gonna have the events out in St. Louis. One of the guys, Marshall. Have you met Marshall Gillen?
No,
So
not
another
yet.
great guy. He does events. So he has I think it's called 100 or top paid speaker, excuse me, and he teaches people how to do virtual events, how to do real events in life, and be able to go through all that. So amazing guy. But Zach's event, he's like, hey, we need something for California. And because he was living in San Diego prior. So,
Yeah.
hey, man, I know a good venue in San Diego. I can make a call for you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, Marshall. So in my case, I was like, I'm in Marietta. I really can be able to tap into LA and San Diego. So in the future, we're going to have events there. And then that kind of goes with my mission as well, because I really want to focus on the recalibrating people's mindset, but either talk to people, transitioning service members, people are trying to, transition in life, and just be like, hey, these are the tools you can be able to do for your business. Let's figure out, what is the next step for you, and then really just help people with it. So later on, it's going to evolve to like networking more and, hey, sending people. So probably build something off like a referral system business with people and be like, hey, bro, I can shoot you a client if you're able to help them in this area of life. Then at the same time, you can help me. So it'll be one of those where we can do that.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. Let's jump into some lightning round questions. But before I do, anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
Oh, man, you've been perfect, brother. I felt like I've been rambling a little bit. So appreciate you, man.
I put you on the ropes a little bit, huh? Okay, cool. All right. Lightning round questions. I'm curious for you, man. What are you think are some choices that you made that made you who you are today, or a choice?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I'll just say challenge the beliefs, man. I just don't believe in a lot of the things. Like I said, I got to put in a class where they're trying to tell me I'm not that educated and I'm not smart. And I was like, nah, I just didn't want to take that test, because literally we're learning how to spell words in multiple classes that way. Failed the college entrance exam, and they put me in algebra or pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2, and it was like, bro, I did this shit in high school. I did in junior high, but it was one where I had to do it, right? So it was not really believing that. For me, it was doing that, channeling that inner fat kid and thinking I couldn't deserve it, and then getting the dimes and being like, yeah, I don't deserve, like, this doesn't feel like me, or dealing with that stuff where it's like I couldn't be appreciative of life because I still had that label of what people called me or what I thought. So in my head, I was like, I don't look the best. I may have looked good, but it was one where I was like, I got to be here. The body dysmorphia deal where you're like, oh, I got to be here, and that's my vision. In my case, it was really doing that, or hearing one thing, or talking, and had one friend over who really understood my situation, and it was like hearing my parents or whatever, and it was just like I would get pissed off and start yelling, and it was just like, that's not me. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be a hothead. So I really got to dive deep into that and challenge those belief systems and then get better. And at the same time, once I started doing that work, it was one of those where it's like either you respect it or you're that person that's like, oh, you think you're better than us. Well, now you told me where you're at, so you can stay there. I'm going to keep working on myself, because at the same time, I'm not going to judge you for trying to do better, because instead, we live the same lives, we do the same things over and over. In my case, like, I hate mediocrity. I hate having that feeling, because I know as a kid growing up and feeling that way. So it's one of those that's always been something about me. And that's why, like, my whole life, even starting the podcast, it was like that, where I thought about it. I'm like, bro, I've always channeled like being at a parent's house or talking to somebody. And then that's why I would give up too much information, and everybody would get mad at me. Oh, you like to tell everybody everything. No, I just connect with people. And I think that when we have that personal connection, I'm going to be real with you, then paint a picture that a lot of people like to do, or tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah, I think it's amazing too. Just like you've had some great guests on the podcast, and so I'm sure anybody that's listening to your podcast is like, how did this new guy on the block get so many like great guests? So again, challenging the belief, challenging what like people say. You can't get that guy. Who are you to get that guy on your podcast? And you've proven people wrong by challenging those beliefs. So I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
Any I'm a big reader. Any big books, or is there like a top 1 to 3 that that you read that had a huge impact on you and you think other people should probably look at too?
So first book that actually got me reading, and this is where mindset comes in, is 50 Cent's book. It's like Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. And I liked it. I've always loved him as a kid. That was my favorite rapper. So it was one of those where it was like, and well, he became big when I was like in third grade. Third grade was a really bad year for me. I'll tell you about it. But that's another episode. So
Yeah.
third grade was a really bad year for me. I was going through a lot then with my parents and just all this crazy shit in therapy, and therapy didn't really work for me then. So it was one of those where I was like, music's what I laid into. So he's talking about in that book the street life and how he was a corner boy in the survival tactics he's using to get his competition off, to how he's using it in business and being able to build these brands. And he threw a TV out the window when his album was coming out. So it was something where he's like, that was strategic, that was planned, and people thought it was one way, painting him to be that. And he's like, nah, he just painted himself to be that, but that's not who he is anymore. So
Yeah.
one book that really like allowed me to flip that switch on was just learning all the business things that he did, but learning and being like, all right, we're very similar. You know, I didn't do it as bad as him or
Yeah.
go to prison, but it was just like, yeah, you know, some of the things he's saying is absolutely right. What we do with our competition on the street and in business, or how we talk to certain people or getting stopped, like, makes sense, you know. So first thing there, Zach had me read what The One Thing by Gary Keller. That book just made me so much better. I did time blocking. I just didn't be as intentional with everything I do, and I'd say that's what it made me focus on. As I read a lot of books and that, you know, and it's trying to figure out everything. So just pick one thing from that book and do it. You know, in my case, I'm going to be with a wife. I'm going to turn the phone off because me and her don't hang out all the time like we used to.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm going to be able to do that so we can connect. And that's been something that's allowed me to get better. So one thing, the other one that I'm reading right now is Breakthrough Advertising. Just a lot of books like that. Like, there's so much different things. And in that case, I bought that book because I was like, there's no way this book's $300, you know? And I was like, if it's $300, I got to figure out why. And it's just like,
it's gotta be good.
Yeah. Learning all these things and marketing. And it's like, bro, like, I've literally went to college trying to learn all these things. You don't need to do that. You know, you don't need to go to college. Even psychology was something I was like, oh, I love psychology and learning about it, but I'm going to go out and get this degree and then I'm not going to use it, you know, versus reading these books. And now we're educated. Now we can be able to talk about it on the podcast. You can get a certification. You know, there's different ways to be able to get what you want. But I'd say like books definitely open that outlet for me to learn so much more and then just apply one thing from it to life.
Yeah. Love that. Any rituals or practices or hacks or anything that you do like on a regular basis? You mentioned the meditation, but anything.
So I'll meditate either once or twice a day. Recently it's been twice a day since I finished school finally, so got more time.
Nice. What kind of meditation do you do, by the way?
Yeah, so I like to switch it up. Box breathing, open mouth breathing was brutal. I have a coach, Nick Wingo, that helps me there. And we did 45 minutes, bro, and I wanted to die.
That's like the open mouth. I'm assuming is more like the Wim Hof. It's more
like the deep breather.
Yeah.
That was it was a different feeling afterwards, like incredible.
Yeah.
But it was one of those. I do take cold showers. I have two different processes of how I do my morning routine. So I like to make that crystal clear because I'm not going to be the one that's like, oh yeah, get up at 3. Yes, I do get up at 3 a.m. to go to the gym. And ideally that is what I would like to do. Get up at 3, by 5, get home, meditate, take a cold shower and do that. But again, I got all these issues with my body. So now I got to listen to it. So there's days kind of like today where my wife had to go into work earlier. So I slept in a little bit. And then what I'll do is get the baby up, get her situated, and then I meditate. And then I do my stretches. And then I start figuring out, you know, what the next thing's going to be, mapping out that, you know, maybe having the coffee and thinking a little bit ahead of time and journaling how I'm feeling before jumping into the day. Because I feel like those days where I rush is so much more. And then in conjunction with that, like today, I'm putting CBD on all day and taking care of my joints, stretching throughout the day, you know, doing a little bit of abs to like wake my body up because they'll just keep hurting. And then I get in the gym and I'm feeling terrible. So it's one of those where it's like, I have to do that. And that's why I make it crystal clear with having both plans is like, my body's different. You know, I can't just get up and go for a run. I don't run. I work on the treadmill, you know, I can't squat. So doing modified workouts and figuring out what's going to work for me to get me there. So in my case, it's like doing all those small things that are going to add into that, you know, Theragun, something I use regularly. I have a foam roller, but I want to get a different one. It's not it for me right now. So it's one of those where it's like trying to learn new things to apply into it as well.
I love that, dude. Man, amazing stuff. Last but not least, Alundas, where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about you and all your projects that you're up to?
Absolutely, brother. So Facebook, Alundas Havens, Instagram, Alundas_Havens. And then the podcast is The Winner's Paradigm. At the end of September, I'll be dropping Alpha Influence Media, so we'll have you on there as well, brother.
Let's
and
go.
that's going to be where people can find me as well, just to be able to hear about how to build dominant brands.
Love it, man. Thanks for being on the show, brother.
Thank you, brother. It was an honor.